The glossy magazine trembled in Charles Moore's hands as his face drained of all color. Three powerful faces stared back at him from the cover of Business, Elite, a woman and two men, all in their mid-20s, with confidence radiating from their eyes. The Carter triplets, redefining American business, the headline declared. Charles's breathing became shallow, his heartbeat thundering in his ears. He stumbled backward, knocking over his imported Italian leather chair. The magazine slipped from his grasp, landing open on the immaculate marble floor of his executive suite. "This can't be happening," he whispered, clutching his chest. "They can't be." The room began to spin. 40 floors above Manhattan, in his glass empire built on 25 years of ruthless determination, Charles Moore, the white millionaire CEO worth $2.3 billion, collapsed. "Mr. Moore." His assistant Diane burst through the door, her heels clicking frantically across the floor. "Oh my God! Mr. Moore." She rushed to his side, phone already pressed to her ear. "I need an ambulance at Moore Enterprises immediately. CEO down, possible heart attack." As Charles's consciousness faded, his gaze remained fixed on the magazine. Maya Carter's eyes, her mother's eyes, seemed to bore into him from the glossy page. Next to her, Jordan's jawline and Malik's smile, perfect mirrors of his own younger face. "Sir, stay with me," Diane pleaded, loosening his tie. "What happened? Do you know these people?" Charles's lips moved, barely audible as darkness closed in. "My children." The truth he'd buried for 25 years now stared back at him from a magazine cover. The black triplets he'd once disowned had become everything he'd built his life pretending to be: successful, powerful, unstoppable. And they had no idea who he was. Welcome back to Soul Thread Stories by T, where we unravel life's most powerful lessons through extraordinary tales of love, betrayal, and redemption. I'm your storyteller, T, coming to you today with a story that will shake you to your core. Before we dive into this emotional journey, drop your location and the time you're watching in the comments below. I love knowing where my Soul Thread family is tuning in from across the globe. Today's story explores what happens when a man's greatest shame returns to haunt him 25 years later, when the children he abandoned for the sake of his reputation and career become impossible to ignore. It's a tale about choices, consequences, and whether redemption can ever truly be earned after the ultimate betrayal. If you believe in second chances, hit that like button right now. If you think some actions are simply unforgivable, share this video with someone who needs to hear this story. Buckle up, Soul Thread family. What you're about to hear will challenge everything you believe about family, forgiveness, and the price of success. This is the story of Charles Moore and the 3 children he erased from his life, until the day their faces forced him to confront his darkest secret. 2003, Manhattan. Charles Moore was 32 and hungry. Not the kind of hunger that food satisfies, but the ravenous ambition of someone with everything to prove and nothing to lose. "Your proposal is denied, Mr. Moore," said the gray-haired executive across the mahogany table. "We don't believe you have the background to handle an acquisition of this magnitude." Charles knew what background meant. It meant he hadn't attended Harvard. It meant his father hadn't golfed with their fathers. It meant that despite his MBA and brilliant strategy, he remained an outsider. "Thank you for your time," Charles replied with practiced composure, gathering his documents. The rejection burned, fueling the furnace of his determination. By the time the elevator reached the lobby, he had already mentally drafted 3 new approaches. That evening, at a finance conference in Chicago, Charles stood alone at the bar, reviewing quarterly reports on his BlackBerry. The industry's elite networked around him, doors opening and closing in conversations he wasn't invited to join. "You're doing the math wrong," a voice said beside him. Charles looked up, irritated, then froze. The woman beside him wore a crimson dress that contrasted beautifully with her deep brown skin. Her eyes, analytical and warm simultaneously, studied him with amusement. "Excuse me," he replied. "Your projection model." She nodded toward his device. You're not accounting for market elasticity. In a recession environment, you'll be off by at least 12%. Charles stared, then laughed. And you determined this by glancing at my screen for what, 5 seconds? 4. She extended her hand. Camilla Carter, Chief Financial Analyst, Westbrook Industries. That night changed everything. For 6 hours, they debated economic theories, dissected market trends, and sketched business models on cocktail napkins. Camilla's brilliance matched his ambition. By dawn, they had conceptualized what would later become Moore Enterprises' cornerstone investment strategy. "You're going to be extraordinary," Camilla told him as they parted. "But remember, Charles, success without purpose is just noise." Their relationship evolved through late-night phone calls, weekend meetings, and eventually a partnership that crossed professional boundaries. In Camilla, Charles found not just passion, but perspective. Her experiences as a black woman in finance opened his eyes to realities he'd never considered. "My grandmother cleaned houses for families like yours," she told him one night as they walked along Lake Michigan. "She worked 16-hour days so my mother could go to college. My mother worked 16-hour days so I could go to Wharton. Excellence isn't optional for me, it's required." For 18 months, they built a secret world together. Charles launched his company with Camilla's strategic guidance. Their professional success mirrored their personal connection. Challenging, invigorating, transformative. Then came the Tokyo deal. Charles was finalizing negotiations to acquire a Japanese tech firm, the deal that would cement his reputation. 3 days before signing, his phone rang. "I'm pregnant," Camilla said without preamble. "Actually, I'm having triplets." The world tilted beneath Charles's feet. His investors, conservative, traditional men, had championed him as the fresh face of old values. His parents, whose approval he still desperately sought despite everything, would never accept this relationship. "This changes everything," he whispered. "It doesn't have to," Camilla replied. But Charles saw his carefully constructed future crumbling. That night, he didn't sleep. He calculated risks, projected outcomes, weighed options, applying cold business logic to the most human of situations. By morning, he had made his decision. At an upscale restaurant with views of the Chicago skyline, Charles slid a check across the table, a number with enough zeros to ensure financial security for 4 lifetimes. "I can't be their father," he said, voice steady despite the earthquake inside him. "The timing, my company, my family, I just can't." Camilla didn't touch the check. "And what about us?" "There can't be an us anymore." Charles avoided her eyes. "I'm sorry, Camilla. I'll provide financially, but I can't be involved. My life is going in a different direction." He expected tears, accusations, anger. What he received was silence. Camilla studied him with those penetrating eyes, seeing through his expensive suit to the cowardice beneath. Finally, she stood. "You know what's fascinating, Charles? You spent your entire life fighting to be accepted by people who will never truly see you. And now, when someone finally does, you run." She left the check untouched on the table. "I don't need your money," she said at the door. "And neither will they. You're lost, Charles. The greatest investment opportunity of your life. And you just walked away." The door closed behind her with quiet finality, leaving Charles alone with his choice. He never saw the tears that finally came, not until she was 3 blocks away, one hand on her belly, whispering promises to the 3 lives growing inside her. 8 months after that restaurant farewell, Camilla Carter gave birth to 2 boys and a girl. As she held them for the first time in a hospital room, Maya with her observant eyes, Jordan with his thoughtful gaze, and Malik with his determined grip, she made them a vow. "You will never be defined by his absence," she whispered. "You are Carters, and Carters build legacies, not excuses." She refused to name Charles on the birth certificates. Instead, she returned to work just 6 weeks after delivery, carrying infant triplets in a custom-made carrier to client meetings when childcare fell through. Senior executives raised eyebrows as she nursed babies between presentations, but her financial analyses remained flawless. Ms. Carter, this is highly irregular. Her boss commented after she closed a major deal with triplets asleep in a portable crib behind her. So is raising triplets alone while maintaining the highest client retention rate in the firm? She replied without looking up from her calculations. Would you prefer I deliver less impressive results? By the time the triplets turned 5, Camila had founded Carter Financial Consulting, operating from a converted brownstone in Chicago's South Side. The first floor served as her office. The second was their home. The children grew up surrounded by financial reports, economic journals, and Camila's unwavering expectation of excellence. Why don't we have a daddy? Jordan asked one evening as Camila reviewed their kindergarten math worksheets. Camila set down her pen. Some families have different shapes, sweetheart. Ours is perfect just as it is. Malik frowned. Tommy said we're not normal. Normal is vastly overrated, Camila replied. Look at me. She waited until all 3 pairs of eyes focused on her. You 3 have something better than normal. You have each other, and you have me. We're extraordinary. What the children didn't see were the nights Camila spent doubled over in pain, the doctor's appointments squeezed between client meetings, the medication bottles hidden in her desk drawer. The diagnosis came when the triplets were 7, stage 2 ovarian cancer. Camila approached her illness like every other challenge, with strategic planning and zero self-pity. She created contingency plans, established trust funds, and recorded video messages for future birthdays, graduations, and weddings she might not attend. Most importantly, she accelerated their education in both academics and life. Maya, why did the stock market crash in 2008? Camila quizzed her daughter while receiving chemotherapy. Subprime mortgage crisis, Mom. 10-year-old Maya replied, holding her mother's hand as the drugs flowed into her veins. Banks gave loans to people who couldn't afford them, then packaged the bad debt as investment products. And what lesson do we learn from that, Jordan? Jordan looked up from his book. Never build success on other people's failures. It always collapses. Malik, always know what you're really investing in, Malik answered, sketching building designs in his notebook. Look beyond the packaging. The cancer retreated, advanced, retreated again. Through it all, Camila molded her children with deliberate purpose. Maya inherited her financial acumen, Jordan her analytical mind, and Malik her creative problem-solving. All 3 absorbed her uncompromising integrity. Meanwhile, across the country, Charles Moore ascended exactly as he'd planned. Moore Enterprises expanded globally. His innovations revolutionized tech infrastructure. Financial magazines featured him on their covers. Bachelor billionaire, America's most eligible CEO, the man with the Midas touch. At charity galas, surrounded by admirers, Charles would sometimes pause mid-conversation, momentarily lost in thoughts of what might have been. These moments increased with each passing year, brief interruptions in his carefully constructed narrative. You've achieved everything you set out to do, his mother told him at his 40th birthday celebration in his Manhattan penthouse. Your father would have been proud. Charles smiled appropriately, but later that night, alone with his whiskey in the city lights below, he opened his laptop and typed, Camila Carter, Chicago. The search revealed Carter Financial Consulting's website. There she was, older, still beautiful with the same penetrating gaze. And beside her, 3 teenagers in professional attire. The caption read, Carter Family, Building Financial Futures Together. He closed the laptop before he could read more. If you've ever walked away from someone who truly saw your potential, press the like button right now. Have you ever wondered what became of the person you left behind? Share your thoughts in the comments below. In Chicago, the triplets entered their final year of high school at 16, all having skipped grades, all at the top of their class. Camila's cancer had returned for the 3rd time, more aggressive than before. I need you to promise me something, she told him one evening, her once strong voice now whispery. When I'm gone, you'll build something meaningful together. Not just successful, meaningful. "We promise, Mom," they replied in unison. 2 months later, they stood at her grave, three 17-year-olds in black, holding hands as rain poured around them. The mourners had departed, leaving them alone with their grief and their promise. "What now?" Jordan asked, always a practical one. Maya squeezed her brother's hands. "We build, just like she taught us." They had no idea that 700 miles away, Charles Moore had seen Camila's obituary, or that he'd made a large anonymous donation to ovarian cancer research that same day, or that, for the first time in 20 years, the great Charles Moore called in sick, spending the day staring at old photographs hidden in his safe. The triplets only knew they had work to do, and Carters built legacies, not excuses. MIT accepted all three Carters on full scholarships. Harvard Business School courted Maya. Stanford Engineering recruited Malik. Columbia Law pursued Jordan. The triplets declined them all. "We're staying together," Maya informed the disappointed recruiters. "And we're building now." With their mother's life insurance and the modest inheritance from the consulting firm, the triplets rented a decrepit warehouse in Chicago's industrial district. Their first night there, they slept on air mattresses surrounded by whiteboards covered in equations, market analyses, and architectural sketches. "People will say we're too young," Jordan said, staring at the leaking ceiling. "People said Mom couldn't raise us alone," Maya replied. "People are frequently wrong," Malik concluded. At 18, they founded Carter Innovations with a radical business model, creating sustainable technology solutions for underserved communities. Their first project transformed abandoned Chicago properties into affordable housing units powered by revolutionary solar panels Malik designed. Maya, with her mother's financial instinct, secured their first investors through sheer mathematical brilliance. In boardrooms filled with skeptical executives 3 times her age, she presented projections so precise they bordered on prophecy. "You project a 27% return in communities with 40% unemployment?" questioned a gray-haired investor. "That's fantasy." "It's mathematics," Maya corrected, "and psychology. People without options overinvest in opportunities they can trust. We deliver trustworthy opportunities where others see only risk." The numbers proved her right. Within 2 years, the Chicago pilot project generated precisely 27.3% returns while cutting energy costs for residents by 62%. Jordan, the strategist, crafted legal frameworks that protected both investors and communities. His innovative ownership models ensured residents gained equity while investors received returns. At 20, he testified before Congress on community development initiatives, his composed demeanor masking his youth. "You're proposing to rewrite housing finance laws that have stood for decades," a senator challenged. Those decades produced record homelessness and wealth inequality. Jordan responded without hesitation. "Perhaps it's time for new equations." Malik, the visionary, revolutionized sustainable design. His solar panels resembled art installations rather than industrial equipment. His housing units incorporated cultural elements from the communities they served. Beauty and function merged in his work, making sustainability desirable rather than merely responsible. "Most green technology screams sacrifice," he explained to architectural students who visited their projects. "Ours whispers possibility." By 23, Carter Innovations had expanded to 12 cities. By 24, they'd launched internationally. By 25, their company valuation exceeded $1 billion. Their workforce numbered thousands, and their project had housed over 100,000 families in sustainable communities. Through it all, they operated by their mother's principles: excellence without excuses, purpose beyond profit, and legacy over luxury. They still lived together, now in a modest 3-bedroom condo above their headquarters. They still worked 16-hour days. They still visited their mother's grave on the first Sunday of every month. "We did it, Mom," Maya whispered on one such visit 8 years after the funeral. "We built something meaningful." Meanwhile, Charles Moore had everything and nothing. At 57, his empire spanned continents. His net worth approached $12 billion. His Manhattan penthouse offered views some paid thousands just to glimpse once. Yet each morning, he woke to pristine emptiness, perfection without purpose, wealth without warmth. His assistant Diane had worked with him for 15 years. She knew his schedule, preferences, and habits better than he did. But she didn't know about the drawer in his bedroom, the one containing a faded photograph of Camila, newspaper clippings about 3 remarkable young entrepreneurs in Chicago, and a business card he'd never worked up the courage to use. "Sir, your 9 a.m. with Tokyo is waiting," Diane reminded him that fateful Tuesday morning. Charles nodded, flipping through the morning's financial publications as he did every day. Bloomberg, Forbes, Wall Street Journal, Business Elite. And there they were, on Business Elite's cover. 3 faces he'd never met, yet instantly recognized. His eyes, Camila's smile, his jawline, her cheekbones, mathematics and genetics, creating mirrors he couldn't look away from. The Carter triplets, redefining American business. The headline announced how 3 siblings from Chicago's South Side built a billion-dollar empire based on compassion, sustainability, and mathematical precision. Time stopped. 25 years of careful avoidance collapsed. The weight of absence, of choices made and unmade, crushed against his chest. "Sir, are you all right?" Diane's voice sounded distant. The magazine trembled in his hands. "Cancel Tokyo," he managed. "Cancel everything this week." Everything but the quarterly board meeting. "Everything," Charles repeated, already reaching for his phone. His fingers hovered over the number he'd programmed years ago, but never dialed. The direct line to Carter Innovations headquarters, acquired through channels that cost more than most people earned in a year. This was madness. They didn't know him. They owed him nothing. His sudden appearance would disrupt lives they'd built without him, possibly damage a reputation they'd earned through their own brilliance. Yet as he stared at their faces on a magazine cover, Maya's determined gaze, Jordan's thoughtful expression, Malik's creative intensity, Charles recognized something beyond their features. He saw Camila's legacy. He saw what might have been his greatest achievement. He saw 3 human beings who had succeeded not because of him, but despite him. His finger press call. A young woman's voice answered. "Carter Innovations. How may I direct your call?" Charles took a deep breath. "This is Charles Moore. I need to speak with Maya, Jordan, and Malik Carter. It's about their mother." The 58th floor Carter Innovations headquarters offered panoramic views of Chicago, the city where Camila had raised her children, the skyline she taught them to reshape. In the glass-walled conference room, Maya stood with her brothers, watching the private helicopter land on their rooftop pad. "He's actually coming," Jordan murmured, adjusting his tie for the 4th time. Charles Moore himself. What could he possibly know about Mom? Malik asked, his fingers unconsciously sketching patterns on the glass. Maya's expression remained neutral. "We're about to find out." The elevator doors opened. Charles Moore entered alone, silver-haired, impeccably dressed, and visibly nervous. For a moment, no one spoke. 3 pairs of eyes studied a man whose features they'd unknowingly carried their entire lives. "Thank you for agreeing to meet," Charles finally said, his voice steadier than his hands. "You mentioned our mother," Maya replied. "That earned you 15 minutes. Charles nodded, remaining standing though they'd offered no seat. "I knew Camila Carter. We worked together in the early 2000s. "Funny," Jordan said, his lawyer's precision evident. "She never mentioned you." A flash of pain crossed Charles's face. "No, I don't imagine she would have." He placed a worn leather portfolio on the table and opened it carefully. Inside lay a single photograph, Charles and Camila, young and laughing, Chicago's skyline behind them. Her head rested on his shoulder. His arm encircled her waist. Maya picked up the photograph, her composed expression faltering. "What is this?" "The truth," Charles replied simply. The revelation unfolded like a controlled explosion. Charles spoke without justification or excuses, recounting the relationship, the pregnancy, his choice to walk away. With each sentence, the temperature in the room seemed to drop further. "You're claiming to be our biological father," Malik stated, his creative mind struggling with this impossible revision of their personal history. "I am your father," Charles confirmed, "though I've done nothing to earn that title." Jordan laughed, a harsh sound devoid of humor. "Let me get this straight. You abandoned our pregnant mother because a black woman and mixed-race children didn't fit your career plans. You provided zero support during her cancer battles. You were absent at her funeral. And now, after we build a billion-dollar company, you suddenly appear with old photographs and what expectations?" Charles shook his head. "No expectations. No requests. No justifications. Just truth you deserve to know." "Why now?" Maya demanded, her voice cutting through the tension. "Because I saw your faces on that magazine," Charles admitted, "and I fainted. 25 years of running from the truth, and it found me anyway." "You fainted?" Malik repeated incredulously. "And we're supposed to care?" "No," Charles said quietly. "You have every right to throw me out. But before you do," he withdrew a document from his briefcase. "I've established the Camilla Carter Foundation with an initial endowment of $50 million. It will fund single mothers in business, education for underserved communities, and cancer research. The foundation will operate independently, with you three as controlling board members if you choose to accept. If not, I'll find other leadership." Maya took the document, her financial mind automatically analyzing its structure. "This isn't a publicity stunt." "The donation is anonymous," Charles replied. "No press release. No tax benefits. No corporate branding. Just resources for causes Camila would have supported." An uncomfortable silence filled the room as the triplets exchanged glances, their lifelong ability to communicate without words now focused on this unexpected proposition. "Mr. Moore," Maya finally said, her voice professionally detached, "we appreciate your candor and the foundation proposal. We'll need time to—" The conference room door burst open. A young assistant rushed in, face pale. "Ms. Carter, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's an emergency. Every news outlet is running the story." "What story?" Jordan asked, already reaching for his tablet. The assistant projected a news feed onto the wall screen. The headline blazed: "Carter Innovations and More Enterprises. The Corrupt Connection." A familiar face dominated the screen. Harold McBath, former More Enterprises executive and notorious corporate raider. His press conference was already viral. Documents proving Charles Moore secretly funded Carter Innovations through offshore accounts to manipulate urban development contracts. McBath was saying, this family connection was deliberately concealed to facilitate the largest corporate fraud of the decade. Maya's phone began buzzing with investor calls. Jordan's tablet lit up with legal alerts. Malik stared at the screen, connecting dots with an architect's precision. "Who is Harold McBath?" he asked Charles. Charles's face hardened. "My former CFO. I fired him 3 years ago for ethical violations. He's been trying to take down More Enterprises ever since." "And now he's coming after us too," Jordan observed. "He's fabricated a connection between our companies," Charles explained. "A connection that didn't exist until 10 minutes ago when I told you the truth. The truth no one can prove," Maya realized, "except with DNA tests that would only confirm McBath's allegations in the public eye." Charles nodded grimly. "He's weaponized the truth I kept hidden. Your mother's legacy. Everything you built. He'll destroy it all to get to me." Market alerts flashed across their phones. Carter Innovations stock plummeting. More Enterprises shares in free fall. Investors fleeing. Partners distancing themselves. "We need to respond immediately," Jordan said, legal mind racing. Separate press conferences. Categorical denials of any business connection. That won't be enough, Charles interrupted. Harold has spent years planning this. He has forged documents, bribed officials, created a paper trail connecting our companies that never existed. Maya's eyes narrowed. How would you know that? Because it's what I would have done in his position, Charles admitted. And I taught him everything he knows. The four of them stared at each other, strangers bound by blood and now by crisis. Decades of absence and achievement, resentment and regret, collided in that glass conference room high above Chicago. We have two options, Maya finally said. Fight separately and probably lose everything, or work together. Malik finished, studying Charles with new calculation. The unthinkable alliance hung in the air between them. If you believe some wounds run too deep to heal, drop a broken heart in the comments. If you think redemption is always possible, hit that like button now. What would you do in the triplets position? Trust a father who abandoned you or face destruction alone? Payoff 1,100 words. For hours, Maya announced, standing at the head of the emergency war room they'd established. That's how long we have before the Asian markets open, and this becomes a global financial bloodbath. The Carter Innovations team occupied one side of the room, young, diverse, crackling with innovative energy. More enterprises executives filled the other, seasoned conservative, radiating practice confidence. Between them stood a relationship chasm wider than the conference table. Harold's press conference wasn't improvised. Charles explained, his jacket discarded, sleeves rolled up. This attack has been choreographed for months, possibly years. Jordan projected a complex timeline on the wall. We've identified 17 incidents over the past year where information was leaked from both our companies. Small discrepancies in contract language, mysteriously identical bid structures, mirrored investment strategies. He's been laying groundwork, Malik observed, making it look like we've been coordinating illegally. What's his end game? Asked Diana, Charles's assistant. Maya clicked to the next slide. Based on trading patterns, he's positioned for a hostile takeover of both companies once our stocks hit rock bottom. By morning, he'll have enough proxy votes to call emergency board meetings. Charles studied the data, impressed despite himself. You compiled all this in 2 hours? 1 hour, 43 minutes. Jordan corrected. Mom taught us to move quickly. A flash of grief crossed Charles's face. She always worked faster than anyone else, too. An uncomfortable silence followed, their first shared memory of Camila hanging in the air. Malik broke it with unexpected directness. Did you love her at all? The room froze. Executives from both companies suddenly found their tablets fascinating. Charles met his son's eyes. More than I've loved anyone before or since. And I still left. That's the kind of man I was. Maya questioned. I'm hoping to be a different man now. Charles replied quietly, starting with fixing this. Maya nodded once, decision made. Then let's get to work. We have a snake to catch. The plan came together with precision. Jordan's legal mind, Maya's financial acumen, Malik's creative problem-solving, and Charles's insider knowledge of Harold's methods forming a strategy none could have devised alone. He expects us to hold separate press conferences, issue denials, and fight the allegations, Charles said. Standard corporate crisis management. So we do the opposite, Malik suggested, sketching rapidly on his tablet. We appear together. At the National Business Leadership Conference, Maya added, it starts tomorrow in New York. Every major financial player will be there, including Harold. Charles confirmed. He'll be front row, watching his plan unfold. But instead of denial, Jordan began. We gave him truth. Charles finished. Just not the truth he's expecting. 18 hours later, the grand ballroom of New York's Plaza Hotel overflowed with the business elite. Harold Macbeth sat in the front row, smug satisfaction radiating from his perfectly tailored suit. The market opening bell would ring in 20 minutes. Both Carter Innovations and More Enterprises stocks have been halted from pre-market trading due to volatility concerns. The moderator approached the podium. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a last-minute change to our program. Please welcome Charles Moore, CEO of More Enterprises, and the leadership team from Carter Innovations. Murmurs rippled to the audience as Charles walked onto stage, followed by Maya, Jordan, and Malik. No prepared statements. No lawyers. No teleprompters. Charles stepped to the microphone. Good morning. By now, most of you have heard allegations about an improper relationship between More Enterprises and Carter Innovations. I'm here to set the record straight. Harold leaned forward, victory in his eyes. 25 years ago, Charles continued, I met a brilliant financial analyst named Camilla Carter. We worked together. We fell in love. The room went silent. When she told me she was pregnant with triplets, I made the most cowardly decision of my life. I walked away. I abandoned her and my unborn children because I believed my ambition was more important than my humanity. Gasps rippled through the audience. Photographers' cameras clicked frantically. Harold's smug smile faltered. Yesterday, I met my children for the first time. Charles turned to the triplets. Maya, Jordan, and Malik Carter built their extraordinary company without a penny of my money, without a moment of my guidance, without ever knowing my name. Their success is entirely their own, a testament to their mother's brilliance and courage. Charles looked directly at Harold. There was never any business connection between our companies. The documents suggesting otherwise are forgeries created by my former CFO, Harold McBath, whose trading records will show he's positioned to profit enormously from our company's destruction. Security personnel moved toward Harold, who was already edging toward the exit. But Harold got one thing right. Charles continued, there is a connection between More Enterprises and Carter Innovations. Not corporate fraud, but DNA. Not financial impropriety, but blood. Charles stepped back from the podium. I'm turning the microphone over to Maya Carter, who has an announcement about a new foundation that honors her mother's legacy and perhaps begins to address my 25 years of failure. Maya approached the microphone, her composure perfect despite the cameras, and whispers. My mother raised us to believe that errors, even terrible ones, can become the foundation for something meaningful if we're brave enough to acknowledge them. She outlined the Camilla Carter Foundation's mission, her clear voice carrying Camilla's vision to a room that had fallen completely silent. This foundation will support what my mother valued most: education, opportunity, and second chances. Not because everyone deserves forgiveness. Her eyes flickered briefly to Charles, but because transformation requires it. As Maya spoke, Jordan quietly handed tablets to security personnel, showing Harold's financial transactions. Malik distributed flash drives containing evidence to selected journalists. Within minutes, Harold was being escorted from the building, his carefully constructed scheme collapsing around him. The market opening bell rang. On screens throughout the ballroom, Carter Innovations and More Enterprises stocks jumped as the truth spread faster than lies ever could. When Maya finished speaking, she stepped back beside her brothers. Charles stood slightly apart, respecting the boundary they'd established. A reporter called out, Mr. Moore, will you be taking a role in your children's lives now? Charles looked at the triplets, questions in his eyes. Malik spoke first. We've agreed to monthly dinner meetings. Professional colleagues, not family. Not yet. My mother always said time reveals truth. Jordan added, we're giving it time. Maya nodded. And we're establishing new board oversight committees at both companies to ensure full transparency going forward. As they left the stage, cameras captured the moment Charles reached out as if to touch Maya's shoulder, then pulled back, respecting her space. What the cameras missed was Maya's whispered comment. She would have wanted us to try. Charles's eyes glistened as he nodded. She always was the wisest person in any room. For the first time in 25 years, they shared truth no one could dispute. 1 year later, For a figure stood before a simple granite headstone in Chicago's Oakwood Cemetery. Autumn leaves dance around their feet, gold and crimson against the fading grass. "We usually come alone," Maya explained, adjusting the fresh bouquet of yellow roses, Camilla's favorite. "This is different." Charles nodded, remaining a respectful distance from the grave where his children stood. He'd earned the right to be present, but understood the sacred space this represented. His silver hair caught the afternoon light as he bowed his head. "May I?" he asked, indicating a small wooden box he carried. The triplets exchanged glances. Then Jordan nodded. "Go ahead." Charles knelt the headstone, opening the box to reveal a weathered business card, Camilla's, from their first meeting, and the check he'd tried to give her 26 years ago, still uncashed. "Hello, Camilla," he said softly. "I should have been here years ago. I should have been many places I wasn't." He placed the items before her name. "You were right about everything, especially them." Standing, he faced the triplets. "I made you a promise last year that I would earn my way into your lives, not as a father you needed then, but as someone who might add value now. I'm here to renew that promise." The foundation has funded scholarships for 372 children of single parents, Maya said, her professional tone softened by the setting. 3 cancer research grants, 17 small business loans to single mothers. The first community center breaks ground next month, Malik added, with a daycare facility named after Mom. Charles smiled, eyes glistening. She would have corrected the architectural plans at least 12 times. 14, Jordan confirmed with a small laugh. "We found her old notebooks. She never accepted less than excellence." "She never needed to," Charles replied. "She embodied it." Silence settled between them, not uncomfortable now, but contemplative. The quarterly dinner meetings had evolved into monthly strategy sessions, occasional shared meals, and careful conversations that skirted the edges of deeper connection. "We're not family," Maya had declared at their first dinner. "We're 4 adults with a biological connection and business interests that occasionally align." Yet something had shifted over the months. Perhaps it was watching Charles work tirelessly on the foundation, refusing credit or recognition. Perhaps it was discovering he'd kept every article about their achievements since their company launched. Or perhaps it was simply time revealing what Camilla had always known, that people contain multitudes, both terrible mistakes and genuine redemption. "The Tokyo expansion launches next week," Maya said as they walked back toward the cemetery gates. "We could use an experienced perspective on the regulatory challenges." "I have some contacts there," Charles offered, "if that would be helpful." "Dinner tomorrow to discuss it?" Malik suggested. "The usual place?" Charles nodded, careful not to show too much emotion. "I'll be there." At the gates, they paused. The triplets would return to Carter Innovations. Charles would head to Moore Enterprises. Separate lives that now occasionally intersected. "She would be proud of you 3, Charles said simply. "Everything you built, everything you are." Maya studied him, her expression softening slightly. "She would be pleased by your efforts this year. Not impressed yet. Mom never impressed easily, but pleased with the direction." Charles laughed genuinely. "That's more than I deserve." "Perhaps," Jordan acknowledged. "But Mom also taught us that what we deserve isn't always what we receive. Sometimes it's better." As they parted ways, Maya whispered something that only Charles heard, for words that would carry him through the months ahead. "Keep earning tomorrow, Charles." And in that cemetery where past met present, where abandonment gave way to cautious possibility, for individuals bound by blood and broken promises took another step toward healing. Not because forgiveness came easily, but because they chose the harder path of building something meaningful from the ruins of what might have been. Thank you for journeying with me through Charles and the Carter triplet story today. Stories like these remind us that our choices echo through generations. But so does our courage to face those choices with honesty. What do you think? Is there a point where redemption becomes possible even after most profound betrayal? Or are some abandonments too deep to ever fully heal? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. Has someone in your life earned a second chance after hurting you deeply? Or have you been the one working to rebuild trust you once broke? Your experiences matter to our Soul Thread family. If this story touched something in your heart today, please hit that subscribe button and join our growing community of storytellers and truth seekers. Each like and share helps these stories reach someone who might need to hear exactly this message today.